think you'll learn a thing or two. We appreciate you being here. As Raul mentioned, my background is rather unique. I've been doing this real estate business, real estate game since the early 1980s. So you can do the math, that's a few years. Done it in many states, Florida, Texas, here in California now. And I have a very active, currently, buy-sell business that we focus on in mainly 4 counties, Napa County, Marin County, Sonoma County, and Solano County. And we'll buy properties in most of the municipalities in those counties. Generally, we're turning those and renovating them. We do a little bit of wholesaling as well. Also, very, very heavily involved in real estate paper. Has anybody made loans or invested in notes? I know a few people mentioned earlier on. We do a lot of paper deals. We've done a lot of paper deals over the year, buying paper, investing in paper, trading paper. We're going to give you an interesting example here tonight as well. And well, we think the two marry together very well, focusing with real estate and paper techniques. So we're glad you're here tonight. We're going to focus on, obviously, where the deals are and how to find them, which will dovetail a little bit on what Raul said. Marketing is a key component. That's my contact information. If you want to get a hold of me, I do answer my own phone, and I do respond to emails and so forth. But that's the best way to reach us. I'm with a firm called Sunvest Property Solutions, and we're happy to have you call us. If you have something up in those areas, the 4 counties, let me know. If you have a unique transaction elsewhere, we will venture out too. I was just talking to Ron earlier today about a unique deal we're looking at in Lafayette, which is in Contra Costa County as well. So my goal tonight really is 3 things. So in the limited time that we have to share with you. One is I want to share with you an interesting case study that involves real estate and paper. And I know some of you that heard me speak last week or a week or so ago, this may be a revisit for you, that's fine. We're going to go over that discussion about where the deals are and how to shake the trees so that you can fill your pipeline with deal flow coming your way. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to tell an attorney joke. Does anybody have any problem with an attorney joke? No. Okay, just want to check. Okay, they're easy to pick on. Okay, so it's a new year, as you know. We're still in the month of January. We got tasks to do, projects to start, follow up with, resolutions, goals, etc. And somebody sent me this slide the other day, and it really kind of just hit home. It's so profound about the new year starting out and all of the way that we hit the ground wanting to accomplish a lot of things during that new year. And by the way, let's give him a big hand for getting that IRA set up and not only just doing it, but also implementing it, because action is a really big part of really any education. You can come to these classes, you can go to these workshops, but you've got to take action. It's so, so important. So it's a new year, as I said, and these very profound words were from a famous English poet. Some of you may know his work, and I'm going to share with you the message that he gave. And that is, very simply, to begin. Very profound, isn't it? Yes. I mean, get started, all right? What are you waiting for? So that's from Wordsworth, excuse me. So Raul knows that I also run a similar group like this. It's called the Bay Area Wealth Builders Association meeting. We've been putting on meetings since the year 2000. Anybody been to our events? A couple of you have. Okay, cool. We've been doing those meetings now for 18 years. And we also have some workshops. I'm going to talk to you about a few of them coming up, one of which I teach myself. Hopefully you got one of these flyers when you came in tonight, because this is a class that I do only once a year. But we bring in some pretty talented people, and we love to have people come and learn in an environment where there's a lot of meaty content that's being put out there. Last week, about a week or so ago, we had a gentleman come in, some of you may know him, by the name of Robert Campbell. Robert Campbell is a prognosticator. He's a real estate economist, he's a statistician, and he predicts the market, if you will. A lot of people are worried about the market that we're in right now. Are we in bubble territory? Are we going to go into a downturn or a correction? And because it's a very frothy market, would you not agree? The market we're in right now? Oh, yeah. So Robert says that data speaks 10 times louder than opinions. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, but data is a lot more valuable to look at if you know how to interpret the data. So I'm not going to bore with you everything he said that night, but I will share with you that Robert often is a doomsday prognosticator. He started coming to our meetings in 2005, and what happened shortly thereafter? We went into the Great Recession, right? So his message for many, many years was this, we haven't hit bottom yet, we're still going down, if you own anything, get rid of it. And many people who followed his advice in 2005 and 2006 were very appreciative that they did, because the market did crater in many parts of the Bay Area and around the country. Now we've climbed out of it. We've had about 5 years of an upward trajectory. And again, people are starting to think, how long can this, music last? And who's going to be looking for the chair when the music stops? So I'll share with you that Robert essentially said, though, that he was rather positive that the economy and the market we're in now has the wind at its back for the foreseeable short term. So you can interpret that how you want, or you might want to listen to some of the things he has or get his book. But at least for the near future, the near future being the next 6 to 8 months or maybe even the rest of this year, he sounded very positive about the real estate market we're in California and also in the Bay Area. Okay? So I mentioned to you about Bay Area Wealth Builders. We sponsor some workshops. Our goal is to make them affordable, high content oriented. We'd love to have you support them. We do about 4 of them a year. We have a couple that are coming up I'm going to share with you right now. One is a gentleman, John Heyer. He's a tax attorney, an accountant, and very, very sharp guy. Of course, a little thing happened back in December. We had tax reform that took hold, right? And that's going to affect real estate. It's going to affect real estate around the country. It's certainly going to affect real estate to some extent here in the Bay Area as well. John is going to come in June of this year. What's the date? June 23rd. He's going to talk about the new federal tax code and what are the angles you can work with this code. And there's some wonderful things that you can do. If you're not incorporated right now, get incorporated. Okay? Get incorporated and learn about entities, because this is a business-friendly tax reform act. And John will be talking a lot about the angles of what you can and cannot do with the new tax reform that just has come into play. So that's going to be in June. Again, we will have that information, available for you, but you might want to mark it on your Google Calendar tonight. That's why I'm bringing it and mentioning to you tonight, because so many people tell me, well, I'm vacationing that weekend, or, I'm not going to be around, or, well, okay, if you want to come to something like this, you think it's going to be valuable for you, mark it on your calendar, put it on your Google Calendar so you know it's coming up. Another wonderful class that is going to come in July is a class on paper. We call it Paper Essentials. Anybody know Peter Fortunato? Not many people know him in this room. Okay. Peter's one of the sharpest guys that I know, one of the most creative guys I know. He's been doing this longer than I have been doing it. He thinks at a different level than most folks, and he is a wonderful educator and somebody to learn from. So he and I will be teaching a class together, and I'm honored to be able to teach it with him. It'll be mostly Peter during the day, but that's going to be in July 21st, and it is going to be called Paper Essentials, and we're going to talk a lot about using paper and real estate together to creatively put together transactions both as a buyer or seller. And then, as I said, not to bore you, but the class coming up next month, and hopefully you got the flyer tonight when you came in, is the class I'll be teaching. It's the Crush It class, and it really offers something for everybody. I'm going to go through some of the things that we'll be covering during that full day. Has anybody been to that class that I've done? Okay, all right, some of you have. So if you join me for that day, because we can only cover so much tonight, of course, you'll learn really about, in the market we're in right now, and it's very market specific, what deals make the most sense, and more importantly, why they make the most sense in the current environment that we're in. We're going to touch on which deals you should probably avoid right now in this point in time. We'll talk about how to quickly evaluate a property and inspect a property like a pro in about 20 or 30 minutes. You don't need to be a contractor. You don't need to drag your contractor through if you learn some of the techniques we'll share with you on how to evaluate property and do it very quickly and rinse and repeat and do it over again. We'll talk about constructing profit guaranteed offers. Wouldn't that give you a lot of confidence if you knew going in that your offer almost assured you of a profit? or that you wouldn't lose your capital. Wouldn't that give you a lot of confidence if you knew when you structured and made that offer, you knew there was a profit going in? That's how we want to buy, and that really should be your goal as well. You should never push the envelope, or as my good friend in Texas told me a long time ago, never cross the center line to buy a deal. There's not a deal that's worth crossing the center line to take on. That way you're going to put yourself in harm's way and at risk. We'll talk about negotiating with sellers like a seasoned pro. I believe, and maybe some of you do in this audience, that negotiation is a $10,000 per hour skill set. Does anybody think that way? Yeah. Very, very true. I mean, just the way things are said, the semantics, the way they're presented, that can pay you thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. And we'll cover that during the day, role playing and some negotiating techniques. We'll also talk about creating and implementing your own marketing plan and campaigns. We will talk about secrets to data mining so that you are targeting what we call high probability sellers. Who's a high probability seller? Somebody wants to sell. That's who you want to be dealing with, if you can. That's a high probability seller. So you want to try to target as much as you can those type of sellers. We'll also talk about techniques to significantly increase direct mail response rates, and I'm going to share a little bit more about this later here tonight. But you know, direct mail, it works. Raul's doing it, we do it, many of you are probably using it as well, but response rates can be spotty sometimes. There are some tweaks you can do with your mail list and who you're targeting that can tweak those rates of response. We're also going to talk about some creative and alternative financing techniques and during that day, and we're going to talk about some really cool joint venture structures that provide win-win benefits for both the catalyst, the person that's putting the money up, and the entrepreneur that's finding the deals, so that both parties win. And when everybody wins, that makes things easy to put together. We also will touch on, during that full day, a very simple 4-page purchase agreement that I like to use when I'm dealing directly with a property seller. Now, again, I don't do a lot with agents, although we do a fair amount with agents where we're forced to use the CAR contract. But when we're dealing directly with property sellers, we try to use a very simple agreement. It's written in layman's terms. I like to joke that even a civilian can understand it. And then we'll talk about wholesaling the right way to keep out of trouble. Raul talked about some issues he may have ran into with assignments, disclosing the fee, whether you should disclose it. There's a lot of outreach going on right now with people that are wholesaling properties where the DRE is getting after them. We had a guy that came to our meeting last week. He said he was running a Craigslist ad trying to wholesale property. Department of Real Estate contacted him because he was making offers on properties with ever having the intent to close and didn't have the financial wherewithal to close. And when those deals don't close, especially if you're dealing with a distressed seller, and that seller was hoping you were going to buy the property and you bail out at the 11th hour, don't you think they might get a little mad? Yeah. Well, they call up the Department of Real Estate and they complain. And when that happens, it spoils the bunch for everybody. So that's what's happening to some extent in the wholesaling marketplace. So there's some things you can do that can provide some safety to you and still allow you to operate and make sure that you're operating properly. And we'll cover that also during that day. So in Christmas, back before the holidays, we had a nice little Christmas gift, didn't we? The tax cuts happened, finally. They did happen in December. And the federal tax code reform, which many of you are wondering what it might mean for you, I strongly urge you to consider coming in June for that class with John Heyer. You'll get a lot out of it. But the Tax Cuts and Job Act, it was supposed to provide, it was, if you'd like to run some calculations and see how it might affect you, or you want to read into it some more, this is a great website to go to, fairandsimple.gop, okay? But it really is starting to kick in. Unless you've been out of the country for the last couple of months, it really is starting to kick in, and some interesting things are happening. The goal of the Tax Reform Act in 2017 was to make tax reform simpler, fairer, and pro-growth. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that